morning I was sick with tension. Then hadn't spoke much since one fainted in a sound the last night. His face usually calm and collected. One of the still awake was sitting on the bed quietly sipping the warm tea he had prepared for her. The events of the previous day kept playing in her mind. Mrs. Kim's cold orders and endless chorus. The sound of a gentle knock on the bedroom door interrupted the silence. The young stiffened, his jaw clenching. He already knew who it was when glanced at him, seeing the storm brewing behind his eye. Before Arthur could say a word, Mrs. Kim hesitantly entered the room. When are you feeling better? Her voice was softer than each one, but it didn't ease the tension in the room. One didn't respond away. She sat her teacup down the side table and slowly stood up, steadying herself before. I'm fine now. Her voice was calm, but her eyes had a fire that had been long suppressed. The young stood next to her, watching the interaction closely, sunburned into face at his side. Mrs. Kim shifted uncomfortably, clearly sensing the change in my demeanor. She wasn't used to the kind of I didn't mean for things to get so bad, I didn't realize. But she didn't let her finish, didn't realize what treating her son's life like a servant might be too much, and making him a cook clean all day while I'm pregnant even might affect my health. One voice wasn't raised, but intensity behind it was unmistakable. She blinked, taken back by the sharpness in her voice. She opened her mouth to respond, but when it didn't stop. Just because you are paying for my mother's treatment doesn't mean you get to treat me like this. I have respected you. I have tried to earn your love and approval. But what have I gotten in return? Insults, order. You are always focused on your ego, on being in control, that you don't even see what you are doing to the pupil. The young eyes flickered to the wine, pride swelling in his chest. As she spoke her mind, he had always told her to stand up for herself, not to let his mother coldness break her spirit. And now seeing her speak so fearlessly. You don't know what you are talking about. I have done for this family for them. You should be grateful. Her face tightened, her composure cracking slightly. Grateful you slapped me yesterday, and for what? Because I couldn't keep up with the impossible standard while pregnant. You always think that I married him for his money. I'm not deserved to be your son's wife. The moment the word left my mouth, the young eyes widened. His heart stopped for a brief second as his gaze shot toward his mother. Disbelief flashing across his features, Mrs. Kemp's eyes narrowed, her pride clearly wounded by one's word, but before she could deny it, you slapped her. His voice was dangerously low, a stark contrast to the silence that had filled her moments before. Mrs. Kim opened her mouth to speak, but the young cut her off. You actually slapped my pregnant wife, he repeated. His voice louder this time, filled with disbelief. The fire in his eyes was unmistakable now. It wasn't, I didn't. The young now he held up his hand, silencing her. His face was cold, filled with a deep disappointment that made Mrs. Kim pause. I told you, Mom, I warned you if you ever hurt mine, I wouldn't forgive you. I'm your mother, Thang. I've always done what's best for you, for this family. Best for me, he let out a bitter laugh, shaking his head. This isn't about what's best for me, it's about your pride. You never accepted one, not because she has done something wrong, because you can't stand the idea of someone else being important to me. You care more about control and appearance than people you claim to love. You are choosing her over your own mother. Mrs. Kim face hardened, her pride not letting her back down. The younger tightened as he responded. I'm choosing my wife. The woman I love is carrying our child, and yes, if it's come to it, I will choose her over you every time. His voice was firm and final. One standing beside him tugged at his sleeve, her heart is breaking at a confrontation. She never wanted it to come to this. One pressed the young, let's not make this words, she whispered. The young shook his head. It's already gone too far when we have done here. Without another word, he walked to the closet and began to pull out their picking in, throwing clothes and essential to them. One was feeling a tone, but knowing that the young wasn't going to change his mind. Mrs. Kim, standing frozen in place, watched us unpack their things. Her ego wouldn't let her back down, a flicker of regret across her eyes. If you walk out the door, don't think you will be welcome back, especially when your precious wife decided to dump and leave you. Young stopped in his track, his back still facing her, his voice steady but cold. That smile, I won't be coming back, whether you choose to respect her as my wife or doesn't matter to me anymore. If this is how it's going to be, we are done here. Don't expect to see me again. We can stop seeing each other from now on. He zipped up the final bag and turned to Vine, wrapping an arm around her waist protectively. Vine looked at him, her eyes full of emotion. She knew this wasn't easy for him, but she also knew it was tremendous for them. Together they walked out of the room, Tanga's fashion and readable determined. Mrs. Kim stood there, watching them leave, her heart heavy but her pride keeping her silent. As he stepped outside, Tang looked back down at Van, gently kissing her hand. "We will be okay, Van, I promise." Van nodded, her heart full of love for the man who just stood up for her. The grand ballroom was filled with the sound of chatter and laughter as the guests celebrated the birthday of Sejin's second child, the son, the second heir of the Kim family. Tang and Van arrived at the party arm in arm, with Tang protective hand never leaving Van with. She was 1 month and 7 days pregnant now, and he took care. As they walked through the crowd, Young leaned close to Van and whispered, "You know, Jagya, I think you are glowing more than the lights in this room. How do you manage to look so beautiful?" He kept touching Van was trying to hide her smile. "Stop it, Young. Everyone is watching us." Young chuckled, not caring who saw them. "Let them watch. I'm just admiring my beautiful wife." Van rolled her eyes, trying to focus on greeting the guests, but she couldn't help but feel the warmth in her chest from Young teasing. His protectiveness and love for her only grew stronger since the incident with his mother and wouldn't let go, even Mrs. Kim come between them. In the distance, Mrs. Kim entered a ballroom with Mr. Kim. They both had bright smile on their face, celebrating the arrival of their second grandson. They greeted guests and Mrs. Kim eyes eventually landed on Tiang and Vine. She paused for a moment, her expression unreadable, before walking over to them. Tiang noticed his mother approaching but didn't move to greet her. Instead, he held Van closer to him, his face turning cold as Mrs. Kim got nearer. Van felt the tension arise gently as he kissed him and silently asking him to stay calm. "Van, how are you feeling? I mean, you normally feel weak." Van asked him for a moment, sensing the tension between Tiang and his mother. Despite everything, she gave a polite smile. "I'm feeling well, thank you." Mrs. Kim seemed to force on a smile, but her tone remained stiff. "That's good. I wanted to take care of yourself during this time." Tang wasn't having any escape on Van's sweetheart and pulling her slightly behind him as he stepped forward. "I don't need your concern," he said coldly, his voice low but firm. "Van is my responsibility and I will make sure she is taken care of. And I always have." Mrs. Kim's face fell slightly, but her pride kept her begging off down. She still held on to her ego, unable to fully admit her mistake. "Tang, I'm your mother. I'm still part of your life, and you are my son. You are still insulting her." Tang cut her off sharply. "If you truly cared about me, you would respect my wife. But you're still stuck in this obsession with control and pride." His voice was filled with frustration, and one could feel how much this was affecting him. She tugged at his lip, trying to calm him down. Mrs. Kim ignored her son and looked at Vine, giving her a tight sports smile. "That's good to hear. You know, family is everything, especially when a child is on the way." Tang patient snapped. Mrs. Kim stiffened and again taken back by his son's directness. "Tang, I'm your mother. I raised you, taken care of you. I still love you despite everything." "Love?" Tang cut off coldly. "If this is your idea of love, then I don't need it. One doesn't need it either. We are living perfectly fine without your approval." "They please," Van whistled softly. "Let's not do this here." But Tang wasn't done. He turned fully to face his mother, his eyes hardened and yielding. "I'm not going to let you ruin the peace I've built with my wife. You have treated her horribly, and for not because she didn't fit into your idea of perfect daughter-in-law, and that's you, not her." Mrs. Kim's expression darkened, her pride refusing to let her back down. "I have done what I have thought was best for you and our family." "No," Tang responded sharply. "You did not what was best for your pride. But I don't care anymore, Mom. I don't need you to accept one. She is my wife and we are living lives and we want. If you can't get on board with that, you can keep holding on to your ego. It doesn't matter to me." Mrs. Kim's face went pale as she listened, her lips pressed into a thin line. Tang sighed, his tone softening slightly. "You are my mother. You raised me and I won't forget that. But if you can't respect my wife, don't expect us to be part of your life. We will be perfectly fine without you." Mrs. Kim is pardon. "You are just going to cut ties, one walk away?" Tang shook his head. "I didn't say that. I won't pretend you don't exist. I still call you on holidays, for birthdays, and for important moments. I won't shut you out of completely my life. But don't expect me to come running to you. I have lots of place in my life by now. How you treated fine." One hard saying gets she listened to things what she hadn't wanted things to escalate like this, but she couldn't tell me the truth and what he was saying. Mrs. Kim had made her life miserable for too long, and mine had been. Mrs. Kim, I've tried my best to earn your respect, but it's clear that nothing I will do ever be good enough for you. I have loved Tang with all my heart, and I have endured your mistreatment because I didn't want to come between him and his family. But I can't do this anymore. You can't keep treating me like I'm some outsider just because I wasn't the wife you wanted for your son. Mrs. Kim, I swallowed slightly advanced but continued her voice steady. I'm not asking for your approval anymore. I'm just asking for basic respect. I'm their wife and it deserved that much. Then glanced down at Vine, his eyes filled with pride. The second time he sees her speak so boldly and it makes him love her more. He turned back to, we are done. Mrs. Kim face paled and for the moment it looked like she might finally break, but her pride held back and instead she clenched her fist and lifted her chin. Fine, she saw through gritted teeth. If that's how you want it, then go, but don't expect me to come like when things fall apart. Tiang didn't respond. He simply turned, taking one hand in his and walking away from the confrontation. Soon they met his brother and brother's wife. They asked Tiang and wants to stay for dinner and leave afterward, but Tiang explained that Van has a hospital appointment, so they need to go for the checkup. Afterward, he met Mr. Kim, Tiang's father. He looked ashamed and guilt because of his wife had done. He apologized once, saying, I'm sorry for what my wife did to you. Mr. Kim was very happy to hear that Van was pregnant. He often asked Tiang about Van's health when they were at the office. And when Van visited the office for a few times, Mr. Kim always checked. As they got into the car, Tiang remained silent for a while, his hand resting on the steering wheel, his gaze focused. One could feel the tension from the yellow events and lingering in the air. She glanced at him. If she should say something, I wanted to take you somewhere special. One looked at him confused but curious. After a while, the bustling city roads gave the way to more peaceful, scenic route. All trees lined in sides of the road and the sky turned a soft shade of pink. The sun began to. Eventually, they arrived at a scheduled, breathtaking spot overlook. A lake, the water shimmered under the fading light, and the sounding trees made it feel like they were a hidden paradise. Then sparked the car and turned to Van. I wanted you to bring here where it's peaceful, just the two of us. When it smelled softly, the weight of the day slowly lifted from her shoulder. The soft breeze played with Van hair and she looked at Young, feeling warm. It's perfect, thank you for this. Without a word, Young gently wrapped his arm around Van, pulling her close and leaned down, his forehead resting against hers, his usual cold exterior. His voice was low, almost a whistle, but filled with emotion. When felt her heart race, she looked into his eyes, a side of them that he rarely showed. Slowly leaned and pressing his lip onto his tender kiss. After that, Young brushed a strand of her hair away from her face, his finger lingering on her cheek. After spending some peaceful time together by the lake, Tiang and Wan made their way to the hospital for an appointment. The air between them was lighter. Tiang held Van hand gently as they walked into the hospital, his protective side present. When they entered the doctor's office, secreted by Dr. He smiled warmly upon seeing them. Wan, Tiang, it's good to see you both. Let's start with the checkup, shall we? Wan sat down after a few tests. Rose viewed the result. One, your health has improved a lot. You are much stronger than before, and the baby is healthy as well. Her eyes lit up with relief and joy. The unusually calm expression softened as a genuine smile tugged at his lip. He couldn't hide his happiness knowing both Wine and really, I'm so happy to hear that. Dr. Ross nodded, glancing at them with a knowing smile. It's clear that all the care and support from your husband has made a big difference. She turned to look at Young, her heart swelling with gratitude. She knew he had done above and beyond to take care of her. Even he didn't always show it openly, Young though still quiet, gave her hand a gentle squeeze. I just wanted to make sure you both okay. Doctor finished the whole checkup and smiled them over the good news and impressed her one to keep resting and taking care of herself. As he left the hospital, one couldn't stop smiling. Tianga, thank you so much for everything. You don't need to thank me, Yogi. I always take care of you. I know you are not child mean the world to me. When I saw with emotion and she realized how just about Tiang had put into making sure she was healthy and strong. His love was gone, but it was deep and unwavering. She felt safe. They both left the hospital feeling happier than they had in a long time, with the good news one health and their baby. There was a sense of hope and excitement for the future.